Welcome to The Holistic Nurse with your host, Peggy Smith. Peggy will introduce and educate her viewers about the differences between alternative, holistic, and complementary medical therapies. Her goal is to empower the lay medical consumer to learn how to advocate for themselves. So now, please welcome the host of The Holistic Nurse, Peggy Smith.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of The Holistic Nurse with Peggy Smith. Today we have a very special guest. He is, you can find him on YouTube channel, Thriving with Coach Mike. And Coach Mike is going to be explaining to us a little more detail about what integrative wellness means and how it's not too complicated to integrate those ideas and live the best life that you can. So welcome, Coach Mike. I'm happy to have you here today.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure, Peggy, to be here.
So tell us a little bit about your background and how you got involved with this.
Well, I was actually a probation officer for 35 years before I decided I was going to be life. I worked with juvenile felons who were institutionalized. Some of them were serving out 1 and 2 year sentences for, crimes like, theft, murder, and a lot of other things. In working with them, I found myself also working with their parents because, as it turns out, a high percentage of kids that are incarcerated are actually trauma victims. In my work with the parents, I discovered that they also were trauma victims, which indicates a cycle of trauma that moves generation to generation. As a probation officer, I was in charge of creating sentences that were suited to the individual. And it would have been easy to find a sentence that worked for everyone, but individual cases have their own particular things to take into consideration. After doing that for 35 years, I decided I wanted to do what I liked about the job and not what I didn't like, mainly the administrative stuff. So I retired and I created a life coaching practice. In my life coaching practice, I was already equipped with certification in clinical hypnotherapy, which I used considerably in the institutions, motivational interviewing, and neuro-linguistic programming. So for those who don't know what a lot of those are, those are just skills that we use to influence each other and to teach each other how to elaborate and improve their communication skills. A lot of people don't know is that only 7% of all communication is verbal. Most 93% of our communication is nonverbal, meaning we communicate with our facial expression, our body language, the decisions that we make, behaviors that we engage in. All of those things are sending billions of bits of information to each other all the time. Neuro-linguistic
As a
programming.
probation officer, you were trained in reading those body signs because you just start with the premise that they're probably lying to get out of something, and
We had to know where to look on their facial expression to see if they were lying. If someone is looking up there and they're calibrated to remember in that direction, we know they actually remember something. But if somebody's going to look up there, they're actually creating something in their mind, creating a story. Yeah. So that's just one of the things that we learned. But there's tons of stuff like that. So, I mean, and it comes in handy in what I do today because as an integrative life coach, I teach people how to pull all the domains together. So we have our physical wellness that we need to consider. We have our emotional wellness to consider, our mental health, but we also have our spiritual health, which a lot of people are oblivious to. They just don't know how that works or what it even means. So there's a degree of spiritual intelligence that can actually help us through life that many people are not aware of. And it doesn't mean religion either. It doesn't mean you have to belong to a church or a certain denomination or any of that.
So I think it's a lot of just observation skills and learning to to know what you're thinking and feeling, and just being aware, increased awareness, like mindfulness and those skills. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah, because our thoughts create our feelings, and we make our decisions and we take action based on our feelings. And so if we are careful to manage the things we think about and curate our thoughts in a way that allows us to feel good, our decision making process will be a lot cleaner. It'll be a lot more consistent and mutually beneficial. We won't leave such a messy footprint, if you will, with those decisions that we make.
so, did you practice a lot of these skills, leading up to becoming a coach? Like when you were working with the kids, were you able to you just have a natural instinct for this, or how
Well,
did you get?
to be able to get through college, I had to hire a hypnotherapist. I had what they called math anxiety. And when it came to algebra back in the day, um, I could figure out the work in my head, but I couldn't show my work. It was a different process, a different part of the brain. And not being able to do that readily created anxiety. So my therapist told me, there's a hypnotherapist that can help you with that. I was getting C's, C minuses in college, and she actually helped me to get my grades up to a B plus, from C minus to a B plus, by relieving me of that anxiety. So yeah, I felt, well, if it worked for me, it for sure could work for these kids. So I began to study hypnosis, and I eventually got certified in hypnosis and began experimenting, with helping kids relax and go to sleep. I worked the night shift for several years, from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. So I got to monitor them in that setting. It was pretty good. Good experience.
Yeah. I know my years of working in adolescent psych, the boys are much easier to work with than the girls.
I agree. I have to agree because we had a girls' unit, and every once in a while, there was a time when I had to be on the on-call unit, and they would send us to wherever there was a shortage. So if some deputies didn't show up in the girls' unit, guess who had to go there? We didn't like being sent out to the girls' unit. I think they tried to overcompensate sometimes, and weren't able to regulate their emotions quite as well.
And even in family units, outside of institutions, you see, boys just seem to get over it quicker. Maybe they're whining a few minutes, but the girls will just perseverate and just keep it.
Yeah, we call
They
that
just don't.
emotional resilience.
So, what? How would you, given our economic world that we're in right now, and how difficult it is to access healthcare services? Um, Can maybe we present these are tools that people don't have to be in a doctor's office necessarily. Things that they can do that don't cost as much as your health insurance most of the time. Um, I think right now the way the whole world is, and I'm not being political here, just I'm watching hospitals in the Philadelphia area close, and doctors are retiring because they're not allowed to practice medicine anymore, and insurance companies are dictating what medicine is, and it's a doctor can't be what they went to school for. So, and that's kind of the purpose of my show, is to just empower people to be proactive about meeting their healthcare needs. And uh, I have a nursing license. Obviously, I'm never going to say you don't need a doctor, because we all need a doctor at some point, uh, and the expertise that goes with that. But there's a lot of things that we can do to help the doctor be more efficient in what he's got to do in the limited time the insurance companies give him.
Oh yeah, that is definitely true. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I think people deserve to know how to care for themselves, and they deserve to know all alternative ways of you know preventing illness as much as overcoming some illness. You'd be surprised how much of illness originates in the brain, in the mind, and moves into the heart and our emotions. and then manifests itself in physical, maladies. So I think everybody deserves to know how to feel good and how to regulate their thought processes so that they can actually enjoy life despite what may be ailing them. There are ways to get past chronic illness, for example. I deal with people that struggle with chronic pain, for example, and there are ways to get past that don't involve taking drugs.
Right. Well, that's another reason that we became so relevant is because with the opioid crisis, we don't have access to those, and that's not always the best option to be able to actually experience life in the best way.
That's true. Absolutely true. I mean, it's kind of like a solution for one thing, but it actually creates problems in other areas that might be even more devastating than the original problem itself.
Well, there's a history behind keep it simple s. I
Right?
think we try to make it more complicated than it needs to be.
So
um,
true.
and I rescue special needs animals, and last year I had a English bulldog with spina bifida, and I realized in taking care of her, uh, when you're a handicapped animal, you don't have a mother babying you or telling you you're different. When Angel wanted to get from point A to point B or to get a particular toy, I actually was watching her one day and she took a deep breath. She looked at her dead legs that just didn't work. And she kind of threw them in front of her body and propelled herself like a seal or a walrus type of thing. And she was just so excited to get to her goal. And she just really, it shows that we mean well as parents. Sometimes it's not the best thing.
Right. We're innately equipped to get by, and we need to know how to take care of that.
Well, to be fair to parents, if you had, we're not trained to have a special need child. It happens more often than it should. We're going to take a brief break right here and then come back with, some more good information.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals.
I know my mother had a saying sometimes, like, as a child, if I was wanted to ask if I could do something that I knew I really either shouldn't be, or she was going to probably say no. Her answer was usually, "If you have to ask, you know the answer already." And she was old country Polish background, and so that really ties in a lot with the way we read people and teach the skills that we have. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, some of those are innate skills that we kind of gloss over for a good portion of our life. But our inner dialogue, our self-talk, has a lot of answers to it that we just don't validate with our conscious mind. Our gut feeling is one thing, and then our conscious mind is another thing. Conscious mind is heavily influenced by external, um, sources. But our gut feeling is more tied to the spiritual aspect of who we are. Um, our attitude is formed a lot of times around our gut feeling. To give you an example, if I introduce you to someone who says uh, that they're a car dealer, they're the best in the country, the best car dealer in the country, and they've sold more cars than anyone else, and more people are happy with their cars than anyone else, you're gonna have a gut feeling about this. You're gonna take what he says with a grain of salt, so to speak, because your gut tells you one thing, even though his presentation is something totally different. That gut feeling, when we take care of it, when we pay attention to it, and we regard it as a vital part of who we are, is more reliable than if we don't. Because if we're not used to listening to our gut, we're going to second guess ourselves over and over and over. But it's important to realize that our gut feeling comes from a part of us that is greater than we are. It's more tied to the rhythm of the universe, so to speak. Rhythm of the universe governs the ocean, the moon, the seasons. It governs all of that has been going on for since the beginning of time. When we align ourselves with that, we become more reliable, just as all of those things are. When you think about it, before we had social media, before we had high technology, people used to use the stars and the moon to guide them, to navigate from one place to the other across the world. Those are the most reliable sources that we have. Why not align ourselves with that and become reliable ourselves in our instincts?
And I think I've learned over the years in nursing, and with you being with institutions, we all know, and everybody tells us we're crazy when we describe it, but weeks with full moons are pretty intense, we'll say.
That's
Uh,
right. And it has to do with the water. It has to do with the gravitational pull and the water. The fact that we're mostly made of water means the full moon is going to have an effect, an attraction to us, just the way it has an effect on the tides um, in the ocean, and with women's menstrual periods, and all of these things that are water based. So it just stands to reason, and that is science. That's not like pie in the sky.
do you have a particular modality that you get the best results with, or do you just pretty much everything is individualized after you assess the person and see what their goals are, why they came to you? And I
You
mean,
know,
the tool bag is so vast. There's so many things you can choose.
yeah, there are a lot of things that I can choose, but the thing is, there are so many people that are struggling with the somatic identity. And what I mean by that is how their body responds to the external pressures of the world, um, how their body is responding to their history, to the way they grew up, the way they were treated as a child. Uh, some of us um, grow up with parts of our body not responding as well because of an emotional or a traumatic event that took place in our life. So one of the things that I do is I help people awaken their body in ways that will allow them to listen to their body and compare it to their gut feeling and their heart, along with what is evidenced outside of us. Many times, people can overcome potential illness by awakening by what we call embodiment, which is awakening your body and being aware of what your body is, is telling us. Louise Hay wrote many books about awakening the body, and she's one of my favorite experts to go to when it comes to reference material for that.
The way she describes things and educates people is easy for almost anybody to relate to. It's
That's
not a
right.
big, complicated and scientific.
That's right. And you
So
figure,
I do some infusions for certain physical ailments and things, and so many of my Crohn's patients and asthma patients, especially the Crohn's, their doctors, I'll say, well, what kind of diet are you on? And oh, my doctor says I can eat anything. It's not going to affect anything. It's not going to change anything. Uh, so I guess we have to teach people too how to, in trusting your gut, knowing that you're still making a good medical sense. I mean, obviously, if your stomach illness has progressed to severe inflammation to the point where it needs surgery and parts of your body aren't working without medical intervention or surgical intervention,
right.
what we do holistically is not going to change that. You've gone beyond the point of, so we really work a lot with prevention and education.
Absolutely, and that's an important part of being healthy in the first place. I have people that come to me for weight loss, and before I even get into uh, prescribing, changes in their lifestyle, I ask them how much they trust their gut, and most of them will say they really don't, because they know that their cravings are going to take them down a slippery slope. I crave cream pies every night, and that's my gut telling me, well, yes, I mean, at this point in your life, your gut is telling you to do something that is not healthy, but originally your gut was telling you what you needed. If you needed water versus food, some people think they're hungry and they'll eat when they're actually just really thirsty. And so and because we don't pay attention to our body the way we ought to, we misinterpret what those indications are. When we can get to ourselves to a healthy state where we can actually trust our gut feelings, our cravings will be more refined. I feel like more protein. I think I need more vitamin D. My body is telling me I need more vitamin C. And there's all these ways of getting all of those different things, but we just don't know what, you know, what is what until we get to that healthy state.
Do you utilize muscle testing in your practice to get some of the answers you need with respect to that?
I do not. I do not. I'd like to know more about that, as a matter of fact. What is that? The
Uh,
muscle test.
Muscle testing is because you've refined your skills of assessment and energetic communication and everything. Uh, you can ask a question and then ask your body tells you whether or not it's the right answer.
Oh, I
Um,
see. Yeah,
and you can train clients to actually muscle test themselves so that it helps them. Some people are just the type A personality, more scientific backgrounds. They need something tangible that you know
they
is not
they need.
like alchemy or something. It's and it's pretty accurate when you
Chris,
learn how.
I'm gonna have to look more into that. Is that something that Peter Levine teaches, or any of the ones who deal with?
I've got some resources on that, and I haven't had anybody on my shows in a while that actually does muscle testing. For the majority of the practice, I'll get one and let you know when that. But I do have resources for you I can share.
Beautiful. Yeah, I'd love to know more about that. That sounds like an interesting thing that people can actually get their hands on. literally
It's a
nothing.
tool that doesn't cost any money.
Beautiful.
And right now so many tools are available on YouTube, and it's
Yeah.
pretty overwhelming for somebody that's trying to heal themselves and doesn't know what direction to go to. What would you suggest?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not
Well,
a fan of Dr. Google from my medical nursing perspective. It's very frustrating. Dr. Google says something and it's totally off base, and then they don't want to listen to what they need to hear. But um, how how would someone, say they're in a different part although you do see people remotely, I assume most of us have been since COVID.
yes, I use telemedicine on doxy.me. I do treatments online. Mhm. But I think that to answer your question, uh, pose the question to me again so I can make sure I'm clear in how I respond to that.
Well, so many people, sometimes even before they come to us, they're actually talking to Dr. Google anyway, especially with the advent of, AI and things like that.
Right.
Um, and that's probably a little bit longer answer than I need from you. We'll take another quick break and, we can go into that a little deeper.
Let's go. Yes.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Hi, I'm here with Coach Mike, and he's sharing with us some of the skills that he offers people and how it can be beneficial, how you can access this from almost any part of the world, um, and how it's really becoming necessary as people, at least in our country, or some people are losing their health insurances and they're losing their doctors. Primary care physicians are, 2 or 3 hours away for many people in our country. Um, so what? It's your mic here. What would you Mike, you have the mic. What would you like to
Yeah. I mean, there are so many resources available to us, and if we would just do our due diligence to research and look things up, we would find that there are a lot of credible um, works out there. I remember I was struggling with blood pressure myself a while back, and my doctor wanted to put me on lisinopril, and I did. I had my reservations about it, so I contacted a colleague of mine who told me what the side effects were, and she goes, "Why don't you read Dr. Andrew Weil's book? It's called Breathing." I said, "Okay." I took the book, I put it on audio, about the audio book, and next thing you know, he had me breathing in ways that I could have done myself. And I've been practicing it ever since. When I went back to the doctor, they said, "Oh, so you're taking lisinopril? Your blood pressure is perfect." I said, "No, I'm not taking it. I'm breathing in a better way." And I told him about the book, and he goes, "Well, I wish we had more patients like you because it would save us, yada, yada, yada." But yeah, things are very simple, a lot more simple, than we realize. So there's no need to be intimidated, especially when things go away. Sometimes, you know, I give God the credit. When something disappears, it's for my benefit, and I think that maybe it's better that it's gone. If I can't access it, I'm not going to chase it. So when something is readily available, like a book by a doctor that tells you how to breathe, you know, and this guy is an MD. He studied medicine here in the West. Fortunately, he has mingled Ayurvedic practice with his practice, and he has found alternative methods of healing. Blood pressure, blood sugar, all these different things that are posing to be chronic illnesses uh, can at least be mitigated by breathing properly. And breathing is free. You know, I tell my clients all the time, whenever you need a do-over, whenever you need the opportunity to forgive yourself and start again, just take a deep breath and hold it for 3 seconds and then let it out. You can do that as many times as you want, and it's free. It's not going to cost you anything. You just stop, take a deep breath, and be grateful. That's another thing, is
Right.
gratitude. Our attitude is something that will take us into that spiritual domain. Our attitude contributes so much to our spiritual intelligence, which is conducive to wholeness. When we talk about being an integrated person, we are talking about pulling everything together: our spirit, our mind, our heart, and our body, pulling them all together. When we disregard any one of those domains, we begin to disintegrate. We begin to fall apart virtually and sometimes literally. We've had patients with diabetes that have lost limbs because, because of the edemas and because of the different things that come um, from diabetes, um, which could have been preventable, had they seen the early warning signs and taken, some of these alternative methods seriously. And it's
I
unfortunate that
one thing modality that I recommend, which is free, and I don't recommend a particular one or not, is the binaural beats meditations that are on YouTube.
absolutely,
They have them in for any medical idea that you could possibly, whether from mental health issues to cancer to blood pressure to insomnia to anxiety, just
that's
um,
absolutely true.
they basically teach you how to breathe, and many of them go as long as 8, 12 hours. I don't think I've ever listened to one more than 10 minutes because it puts me to sleep. I'll put them on when I go to bed,
Yeah,
and I wake up, feeling refreshed and well rested, but
yeah,
it was playing in the background for my mind while I was sleeping.
yeah,
That's a very helpful tool to get to know yourself, I think, and to just sit back and
absolutely.
relax.
I totally agree with that. I've worked with people that are subject to panic attacks and they don't know how to calm themselves down. The high anxiety and the vivid imagination doesn't help high anxiety either, because they'll immediately begin to imagine the worst, which exacerbates the panic condition. But binaural beats will distract you from overthinking, and it will regulate your brain waves in a way that can actually let the body do its job and heal itself. So yeah, I highly recommend binaural beats. And it's pleasant, you know, to listen to. It's not like some of the music nowadays that I don't even know how it qualifies as music, but some of the things people would listen to, you have to wonder, can that music really be good for you? But I do
Well,
know this is
music is another inexpensive healing mechanism, whether you're musically inclined or not. Maybe it's even playing old church hymns if you were raised in a very religious background that it gave you comfort.
That's
Um,
right.
I play animals. I have a dog, a cat, and a parrot music programs that I play when I'm not home for my animals. Uh,
Yes. Daughter
and
does that for more animals too.
it does calm them down.
Sure.
Um, and not only is breathing free, but water is one of the most inexpensive medicines. And, I
That's
had a shaman from South Africa on the show many times, and, he says that people in America just don't drink anywhere near the water we should. And a lot of problems can be prevented or postponed if you're drinking, if you're well hydrated. Now, if you're already in kidney failure or heart failure, that's a different story. You have to listen to your doctor uh,
mhm.
because obviously you can't put too much stress on your heart or your kidneys. But there's a lot of options out there for people, and our role is to just educate through shows like this. To let people know that you're not alone, and when I lived down south, I had a home care patient tell me when her doctor moved 4 hours away and wasn't in her insurance anymore, well, if God wants me to live, he'll find me a doctor. If not, I'm going to heaven sooner. And that fatalistic attitude, it broke my heart. I said, no,
Yeah,
you can appeal that. The insurance does not always have the final say. They expect you to appeal it, and 90% of those that appeal do get. So
that's true.
and if a medication is prescribed that is life necessary, almost all pharmaceutical companies have a patient assistance copay program,
That's good
which
to
can be, zero to very minimal for most. And a lot of these medicines, the really ones for critical illnesses, they are
mhm.
out of the average person's budget. Um,
And
but
there are
some
you can get for your phone too, like a couple of prescription apps that will reduce
Good
your
RX, Single
good
Care, and
is
some
one of
others.
them.
It's not insurance, but even I have prescription insurance with my Medicare and everything, but I always check their prices first. And also, in our country, Walmart uh, has a whole bunch of meds that are only less than $10, as low as $1,
Yes,
even if you have no insurance at all. If your doctor prescribes a very expensive medicine because it's the newest and the best, and maybe he got some extra pens or clipboards from the rep, you're not allowed to take this anymore, like trips. Um, you can always ask him to, a lot of these new drugs are just combinations of the old ones. So if you
hmm
can't afford $600 a month for that combination drug, you can probably afford the $10 or $15 for each of the two drugs that made that combination drug. And your doctor, if he knows the problem, he will change his prescription for you. Don't
there
just
you go.
skip it and tell anybody. You're not the only one that has financial concerns about medications.
That's another that brings up another thing. The way we communicate with our doctors, we don't have to be intimidated, but we can actually have a positive influence in the decisions they make for us by the way we relate to them. And one of the things that I tell people, when you go into your doctor's office, be respectful and be kind. And the doctor is more apt to pay closer attention to your needs than if you go in there, whining, complaining, and demanding. There's going to be a big difference in the things that he recommends and the way he treats you and things like that. So our communication skills really come in handy for things like that, influencing people that are in a position to help us. As a
And
neuro,
doctors really do appreciate the collaborative effort. I mean, they've got the weight of the whole world on their caseload, Um,
that's
and I've had home care patients that are doing things alternatively, and they're afraid to tell their doctor. And you should never be afraid to tell the doctor, because if you're taking some prescription meds, they could interact with what you're doing on an herbal or vitamin basis. And he needs to know if you're about to have surgery or if you're on a blood thinner, things like that, you can't be taking fish oil and your vitamin E's for a few days before that. Um,
that's
so it works. Life goes smoother if we all work on the same, in the same ball game on the same team.
yeah. And when we respect what the doctors have to do, I mean, it doesn't hurt to ask questions to allow them to be clear. You know, Sometimes we're afraid to ask a question that we're asking dumb questions, but If the doctor knows that we don't quite understand what he's saying, they appreciate the questions. They appreciate being able to tailor the response to your understanding, so to speak.
And
So
I
yeah,
recommend, especially if you're a high anxiety type or if you're facing a catastrophic illness, a new cancer diagnosis or something, you don't have to have somebody medical go with you to the appointments, but just somebody that isn't feeling the anxiety, because when you're anxious, you miss a lot of things.
yeah,
Uh,
that's
and so by having an objective family member, brother, sister, anybody, nice if you have somebody in the family that's medical, but it's not necessary for you. Just learning, you just want to get the information that you're missing because you kind of freeze, your life. You see stars, and you're already calling the funeral director when you first hear the word cancer, and many cancers are quite treatable nowadays.
that's true.
Cancer,
Absolutely.
sorry.
Yeah,
So
one of my best friends is a naturopathic doctor, and he studies blood cultures, and will often make sure that people get another diagnosis just to make sure that all the pieces are covered before they do a radical treatment. So it's another thing.
right. We're going to take our last break, I guess, and then you can tell people, how to reach you and maybe a little bit clearer about services that you offer. We'll be right back.
Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Okay, welcome back, Coach. I guess if we were to kind of summarize the key points, a lot of it is about just gratitude, loving yourself, accepting yourself, forgiving yourself if you're not able to accept yourself. And, it helps to have a professional kind of guide you in that direction. But, and I guess I'm going to interject here too, just in case anybody watching has some critical mental health issues going on. 988 is the universal in our country suicide hotline. There's always somebody that can get you local resources and help you. But if you take a minute to breathe, sometimes you realize, like my kids, when they used to skin their knee as toddlers and they'd be crying, they want my sympathy. I would say, do it again. I missed it. And then they'd start laughing. Uh,
I don't have a grief.
Yeah, that's the nurse, the compassionate nurse mother, yes. But there's ways of, dealing with life if you can get out of that panic mode so that you can see clearly. Why don't
Yes.
you sum it up here, tell people how to reach you and what we can do?
Yeah, the name of my practice is OptimaLife Coaching and Practices. I do hypnotherapy and I do somatic treatments. I've created a modality that is a combination of two, so it's going to be hypno-somatic, which means that I help your mind relax and I help your body relax. I call it massaging the mind and hypnotizing the body so that they can cooperate with each other. I can be reached at www.olcp.life. Um, and I work on the sliding scale. I don't take insurance per se, but I will never turn anyone away for an inability to pay. I have free sessions that I offer, a free introductory session that will allow someone to make an assessment of themselves and also recommend other people in different scopes of practice that they can go to as well. So, and I do online work as well as in-person work. So yeah, and there's another thing that a lot of people won't consider nowadays, and that it's what I call bartering. There are people, very talented people nowadays, that have so much talent that they don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to get the best bang for their buck. So someone that isn't able to pay, I'll say, well, what do you do? What can you do? I'll trade an hour for an hour, and we work that way. And fortunately, it has never failed. It works out well for those who have to think twice about what it costs.
I traded for guitar lessons,
Yeah,
back a few
that,
years back, and it not only helped with, I mean, she felt empowered because her self-worth increased. She realized that she's got value and she's got,
something
uh,
to yes, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah,
and
the that's that's the thing there. There's no reason to not get good help and good care. And sometimes if your practitioner isn't aware of bartering, you can take the first step and say, well, I'll do this for you. And obviously it's going to be of some value to where they would consider something.
when I first moved down south, that seems to be a social custom. Like if your garden is, overflowing, you're sharing your fruits and vegetables with your neighbor. They say thank you, and then they run in the house to see what they can give you in exchange.
That's the way it
Being
is.
being a Yankee, that was new for me.
Yeah,
But that's human nature. They have churches down south that you go on Saturday and at flea markets, everything is free, and you bring whatever you don't need in your house, and you can take what you need from the yard sale. And
that's
um, it never hurts to ask. We have to be very creative how to survive and survive successfully.
that's
And
right.
you meet a lot of great people, and everybody's got something to offer.
When we were young, we used to go to these big companies that had surplus in LA. They would throw food away because the carton was messed up or the label was damaged and we would collect the food and distribute it to the poor. Of course, we were able to feed ourselves by doing that as well. But we taught people that, just because it's not of use to you anymore, it doesn't mean that somebody else can use it. So we had a lot of people donating, big companies donating a lot of things that could actually feed people and house them and equipment, tools, whatever, you know. So there's more resources than we realize sometimes.
There is, and sometimes our pride gets in the way of asking for help, and
So
everybody needs help at some point, and more often now than they ever did. So, just
we don't realize that sometimes receiving help from someone else is what someone else really needed. We can't
absolutely.
we can't deny someone the good feeling of giving. When we refuse everything from everyone because of our pride, uh, it's a disservice to those who are offering. And it's just a matter of allowing people to give and being at both ends of the spectrum, giving and receiving.
Absolutely, I think, and also, I guess one other thing I leave besides drinking and gratitude, and breathing, keeping a sense of humor, being able to
Yes,
sit back and and laugh at yourself too, even if you're clumsy and
yes,
everything. That helps. Um,
absolutely.
so
My,
I'd like to thank you for coming here, Coach. That's
my pleasure.
OLC dot life, and
OLCP Life. Yeah.
right, and Also, your show is, when is your YouTube show on?
It's on Thursdays at 11 a.m. with Dr. Michael Murphy. We're co-hosts on that show. Our show is called Snippets of Wisdom.
Okay. All right. So that's next Thursday. Then you can get both of us again. Coach will be at 11 a.m. And I'll be here again next week at 1, the Holistic Nurse with Peggy Smith. Next week we have an ophthalmologist who's going to be talking about dry eye and some of the holistic things that they do in their practice.
Watch that one.
So, there's just lots of ways out there to help yourself that are economical and fit your budget. Just don't discount it without trying.
That's right.
So you have a great week, Coach, and I'll be talking to you soon. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Nurse Peggy. Appreciate it.
Take care. Have a good week.
You too.
This has been The Holistic Nurse with host Peggy Smith. Tune in each week where you're encouraged to send in questions and receive private responses and suggestions if appropriate. Thursdays, 1 p.m. Eastern.